single most terrifying thing that has ever happened to me happened a few years ago. I still have trouble believing what I witnessed, only because it seems so unbelievable. I've spent all my life being a skeptical person, but after that night, I truly don't know what I believe anymore. My boyfriend at the time owned a big and beautiful home that was basically in the middle of nowhere. I don't recall the exact acres, but it was one of those properties with a ton of land. Like, if you walked out the back door, you could just keep walking, and it was still on their property. His family owned some type of big landscaping company. I guess I should say his parents owned the house, not him. His parents were going to be out of town for the weekend, so he asked if I wanted to stay out there on Saturday night, so it could be just the two of us. Of course, I didn't say no. I remember telling him that it was kind of scary being in the house alone, just because it was so secluded. It felt almost eerie in a way. Those fears didn't last very long. Once our night got going, I didn't even think about the desolate area of the house. He made me dinner, got my favorite bottle of wine, and for the cherry on top, he brought out our favorite game to play together, Phase 11. The night started out great. We spent several hours just laughing and having a great night. I was sad that this was only going to last one night. Around 1:15 in the morning, we put on a movie in the living room. We must have been exhausted because we both fell asleep during the movie. This is where things start to go downhill, fast. We both were awoken by an incredibly loud noise. It was so loud that we were both covering our ears. I could feel the ground vibrating, and I could hear the glasses in the china cabinet shaking. I remember thinking we were having an earthquake, even though I have never witnessed an earthquake in this area. I wish I could do a better job describing the noise. It was almost like a horn you would hear on a boat, except the bass seemed lower, and it was much louder. This noise lasted a few seconds, and then stopped. Just because of how jarring the sound was, the seconds felt so much longer. He got up and looked around, confused. We both had the same reaction. This was such an alarming sound, made even more alarming because there's literally nothing near this house. He turned off the TV and made his way to the giant bay window in the living room that looked out into a massive field in the backyard. He looked out the window and said he couldn't see anything. Then I went over and cupped my hands to look out. I scanned the dark yard the best I could, and I also didn't see anything. Neither one of us could figure out a rational solution to the sound. I remember almost settling on the idea that maybe a tractor trailer of some kind drove by and had a very loud horn. I know that's ridiculous, but I couldn't think of anything else that could have made that noise. While we were sitting there trying to catch our breath, we both saw a bright flash in the backyard, a lot brighter than the flash of a camera. It was like lightning, because it lit up the entire room. We both ran over and looked out the window again, and once again, nothing. We both were starting to get a little freaked out. He insisted on shutting off all the lights in the house so he could see outside better. I was terrified to sit in the darkness because I had no idea what was going on, but I agreed anyway. We went to the kitchen, which was on the side of the house, and we started looking out of the windows. While we were in the kitchen, we saw a light come from the back of the house. We went back to the living room and noticed that the floodlight in the backyard was now on. He was freaked out by this, because that should not have happened. He claimed that if it were a small animal, it wouldn't have registered the sensor. I couldn't tell if he was messing with me. When I started to press him, I could tell. He looked genuinely freaked out. Then, we heard the noise. It was the strangest noise I've ever heard in my life, almost like whispering, except it wasn't any language I ever heard. It sounded like mumbling. I looked at my boyfriend, then told him that someone is definitely out there. He didn't say anything. He just stared at me with these terrified eyes. Before either one of us said anything else, he pointed at one of the windows on the side of the house. The silhouettes of two people walked by. The movements were strange, almost like they were swaying by the window, instead of walking normally. I told him to call the police. Clearly, somebody was outside the house. When he pulled out his phone, he didn't have any service, even on Wi-Fi. This was not a problem he ever had while staying at this house. He always had good service. I pulled out my phone, and I also had no service. Whatever this person or thing was outside the house, it made its way to the door on the side of the house, next to the kitchen. Whatever it was trying to open the kitchen door, a door I know I saw my boyfriend lock earlier in the night. I couldn't believe what was happening. I started to scream. It probably wasn't a good idea, but I think it was just instinct at that point. I was more scared than I had ever been in my life. The screaming must have scared them or something, because they stopped trying to enter the kitchen door. But we could still see the shadow of them standing outside. And it was even scarier now, because they were just standing there, outside the door. We could hear the strange whispering again. My boyfriend screamed that he had a gun, and that they had better get off his property. This was a lie, but he thought that maybe the threat of that could scare them away. With all the commotion of the last few minutes, I had forgotten all about the loud noise that initially woke us up. Until it happened again, with no notice. That loud, blaring sound echoed throughout the house again. It was so loud that we were both covering our ears and screaming. After a few seconds, the sound stopped. We looked up, and the shadows of the two that were outside were gone. We saw another lightning flash outside, and then our phones almost simultaneously lit up with notifications. We had service again. Right at that exact moment, both the side door and the front door blew open. 2 doors, both of which were locked, just shot open for no reason. I expected something to run inside, but nothing did. He ran to each door and shut them, and I called 911 instantly. I told them that we had 2 people trying to break into the house and that they had some type of loud horn that kept blasting. It took the cops a little while to get out there, and the entire time we waited, we were scared that something was going to happen again, but it never did. We talked to the officer for a little bit, and he seemed skeptical of all the information we gave him. He didn't understand how we could have heard something so loud. It didn't make sense to him. He also said that it looked like there was no evidence that anyone was at the house. It was muddy in the backyard, and yet there were no muddy footprints anywhere outside or by the side door at all. He basically left by saying that if something else happens, call them. But until then, there's nothing they could do. We stayed up the rest of the night. We were terrified. Just having someone outside would have been terrifying enough. But the fact that we can't explain what we saw just makes it so much worse. We have no idea where those shadows, or whatever they were, came from. And then they vanished just as fast as they arrived. Nothing happened the rest of that night. And according to him and his family, nothing like that ever happened again. I still struggle to believe what happened. There are some things that can maybe explain what happened, but then I remember the loud noise and the lightning and just everything that happened together. I'm just lost and confused all over again. I have no idea what we witnessed that night. I know there's a lot of people out there who don't believe the story, and that's fine. I never believed anything like this could happen to me either, until it did, and I still struggle to believe it. And I was there. Even in this modern era, with all the technology we have, I guess some things still are unexplainable.